Yeah, it's on top of the air conditioning unit. But I can look into getting a copy of the Dropbox key. See if we can get that.
Chris, a true value in town is a fine job with keys.
Okay.
She can hook you up.
Okay.
Well done on that one. Number 4, discussion of possible action on ordinance to discourage dumping at Blue Spring Lake yard waste site by non-residents of Blue Spring Lake. Now, where's Jim? You've been out there, somebody posted a sign that has an ordinance number 91-1 and some other sections on it. That tells me that somebody made an ordinance back in 1991. But do you think I can find it in those books over there? No. Okay, I don't know what to say, if we have to recreate an ordinance. You just came up with something tonight, yard waste.
Right, so I reached out to Wisconsin Towns Association to see if they had any information on this. And they don't have any sample ordinances for no dumping at any sites. So they gave me a couple of suggestions on where to look, and this was one of them. It just talks a little bit about if the town owns it and maintains it, the information that you would possibly put into the ordinance. And then the other one was state statute, I didn't have it. Well, here, state statute 287, which is quite lengthy. So, and I just got that today, so I haven't had a chance to read through it all. And it, probably the majority of it has nothing to do with what we're looking at. The last thing I was going to do is reach out to all the other municipalities in the state of Wisconsin, the clerks out there, and see if there's anybody out there that has this situation, and if they have a sample ordinance that we can use. That's my next step, because I can't find anything. Usually the Wisconsin Towns Association has a really nice sample, and they just don't have their own samples. They have samples from other towns too, but they didn't have anything. So I kind of no call on it.
But we definitely could not find it in our records.
So,
Right, unless Blue Spring Lake's got
I can ask at the next meeting.
91, wouldn't that tell you that the ordinance was made in 91?
yeah, and I
But
think
the sign looks so new, it's in great shape.
Could be a replacement sign where it's just copied the prior sign or something.
Well, that's true, but who did that?
and I think it noted subsections too, like
Yes.
14 and 16, and no, there's nothing. So,
So,
Jim, any input?
Well, if you can't find anything, rescind the whole thing and start over.
I mean, any idea where it might be or
No.
what the lake?
I've brought it up with Hockman. I brought it up with Hockman many times, and it's like talking to a rock. He didn't do a damn thing with it. He just ignored the whole thing. I said, well, you can't enforce something if you don't even know what the rules are. And then he says, no, there is no ordinance. He said, there is no ordinance. That was his answer at the end. So if there is no ordinance,
Maybe that's what.
Dump it.
You approach it.
start
Like you
new.
said, start new, find examples.
yep.
We don't even have something to rescind.
well, rescind what the numbers are, whatever they are, just rescind that. Let somebody else figure out what it is.
Cool included in the first one.
Is there any reason we would need to cover that sign up, that part of the sign?
Eventually, you'd have to.
No, I mean now, is there any reason we would have to go out and cover?
No, nobody pays any attention to it anyway.
Yes,
I looked into that when I was on the board, and the town doesn't own the dump, Blue Spring Lake does.
Correct.
So that ordinance meant absolutely nothing because it wasn't our property.
According to Hockman, though, he said that for that ordinance to exist and be correct, the town has to do it, not Blue Spring Lake.
let's check with the attorney on that.
I mean, Lake may own it, but it's in the town.
The town's got control of it, I think. And according to Hockman, that's what he said.
I mean, from the standpoint of it, as stupid as it sounds, it's littering.
That's what it says out there, is littering.
So, I mean, can we just look through our abstract, let's solve the problem here. If we have a littering ordinance, post that out there, because it's someone's private property.
Yeah, but the point of it too was, it's limited to Blue Spring Lake residences. So I don't know if the littering thing, but we can look at that avenue, absolutely.
So for.
One of the problems that came up on a regular basis is nobody knows nothing. So we put up 2 cameras out there, so when people are coming in and out, you have a record of a license plate number and a description of the vehicle. Well, that was great. I was connected well enough that people would tell me who it is. I would contact the person and say, hey, you're not allowed to be doing this, stop it, and they did. It worked well, but it was illegal to do that because you cannot legally enforce an ordinance that doesn't exist and go to a police officer and ask him to identify the vehicle. And you know that.
Well, that's all part of the ordinance we'll have to figure out is how do we monitor it and
Right.
fines and stuff like that.
The monitoring is simple. Dick Roloff still has the cameras that I bought him.
Well, trying to stay on the agenda for the next agenda, please put something down, law enforcement or enforcement for town ordinance, constable, something. Just bringing that up. Because some of these ordinances, if we had somebody local, that could be enforced by a town marshal or a constable without costing us a bunch of money. Just a thought. We have all these ordinances and no enforcement.
This one, I think, would be fairly simple to enforce. Put the cameras up, monitor them
And who's
once every
gonna
2
write,
weeks.
I agree, who's gonna write the ticket? County or?
Town board, I don't know, whatever the legally.
Whoever has jurisdiction to write the ticket.
Right.
There used to be a constable at Blue Spring Lake.
That,
We haven't had that in years.
Have you looked through that? Most of those books over there talk about enforced by the constable. Enforced by the constable, in those books over there, I'm telling you. So, and some of us looking in the audience have been around here, remember those guys, Charlie Walt and others were the constable from the town. And they went out and wrote dog at large tickets, and they wrote this and they wrote that. So that's another conversation for another day.
yeah.
Anything more on that? We already took care of the update from the airport commission, so we'll move on to new
Well,
business.
so are you going to table that for the next meeting, or you're leaving it as is?
No, we're continuing it to the next meeting.
So then you'll need a motion to table for the next meeting.
I make a motion that we continue this to the next meeting while looking for information from other Wisconsin towns on potential interest or potential ordinances that they may have for us to use as examples.
Motion made to table this till next month.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Now, new business. Discussion and possible action on 2023-002 ordinance to create 5-member board.
Right, so, with discussion with the Wisconsin Towns Association, this is what the current ordinance says. Town of Palmyra, Wisconsin, ordinance number 2023-002, ordinance creation of a 5-member board. The town board of the town of Palmyra, Jefferson County, Wisconsin, has the specific authority under 60.10, paren 2, paren C, 60.21, paren 1, and 60.22, paren 3, Wisconsin statutes to adopt this ordinance to establish a 5-member board. This ordinance, adopted by a majority of the town board on a roll call vote with a quorum present and voting with proper notice having been given, is hereby ordained as follows. Section 1, purpose. The purpose of this ordinance is to provide greater representation to the residents of the town of Palmyra via a 5-member board. Section 2, adoption of ordinance. Pursuant to authorization under 60.21 paren 1 Wisconsin stats, the town board of the town of Myra, Jefferson County elects to create a 5-member town board as follows. For the spring election in 2024, Supervisor 3 and Supervisor 4 will be elected for 2-year terms. Supervisor 3 and Supervisor 4 will remain on the even year election rotation every 2 years. The chairman of the board and Supervisor 1 and Supervisor 2 will remain on the odd year election rotation every 2 years. Section 3, effective date. This ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage, posting, and publication as provided under statute 60.80 Wisconsin statutes. And then there's the dates and the signatures.
I make a motion that we adopt the ordinance to create a 5-member board as of today's date.
Motion is made to approve ordinance number 2023-02. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion purposes.
Okay, a second. Motion is made in a second. Any other further discussion?
So I've got mixed feelings. I talked about this at the meeting last month, I think, and maybe even the first one that we had, but my concerns with, I'm gonna call them 3 and 4, is that they become nothing more really than placeholder seats. In the grand scheme of it, obviously there's historically been some interest in being a town supervisor by the people of the community, but at the same point, backing that against the change in going to a primary, I think may dramatically affect what that has historically looked like through the caucus process. So I guess my question or the future hope of this is that right now, obviously, I'm doing highways, Rob's doing fire, you're doing emergency management. More or less covers the broad basis of what the board's responsibility, and Blue Spring Lake too. My hope would be is if we're going to expand the size of the board, that we also expand the service that we're providing back to the community in some way, shape, or form. Whether that be, and I'm not saying this, creating more work, but creating a more streamlined process for some things, or a process at all for some things. Like, obviously, anybody that's paid attention in the last 12 months, we've got a bit of a budget problem, probably on our horizon here. And whether part of this is the creation of a budget committee, or a finance committee, or a whatever, to me, that's where the functionality of potentially your role as a chair, excuse me, your role as a chairman would become more of a leadership role rather than a boots on the ground kind of thing. For instance, there's trees on Young Road. You call me, I'm the highway guy. There's questions or concerns about service from fire EMS. You call Rob, he's that guy. Because there's still going to be the hiccup of, let's say Rob calls me, I can't call you because that's 3 out of 5 and that's still a quorum. So there's still the issues surrounding some of this, and I would hope that if we do move forward with a 5-person board, is that there's also the expectation that some of the responsibility is actually going to grow between now and April. And whether that's creating a budget planning committee or creating, whatever it is. Not that we pass this ordinance tonight and then forget about it until April 14th when, we have a ordaining meeting with the new town board members. That's my hang up behind some of this. I've not only in the community but around know that more isn't always better, and at the same point I sit back and I think, okay, well, the fire and EMS committee has 5 members. The airport commission has 5 members, the town board has 3. Well, no offense to the folks at the airport, but I would imagine that if the singular focus, let's say, is the airport, needs 5, then maybe the town board does need 5 to cover the broad bases. That's my discussion, I guess, too.
I agree with what you've said. I guess my only discussion is, from my perspective, I think that's what we were assuming to talk about all along, is doing that. But I wholeheartedly agree with you that we do need, I believe we need a budget committee. And there's probably, like you said, 2 or 3 other things that having a focused committee on would be beneficial to us. So I agree with what you're saying. But I think that's part of what we're talking about as well.
So do you feel we can do that? Can we come up with different responsibilities and streamline it more to make it more effective? Or?
Number one, in my own mind, and from what Laura's been able to research for us, we have time on this item before it really becomes ugly, right? Even if it's September. This gets passed in September, and there's still October, November, December, people start pulling papers for a potential February primary, blah, blah, blah. So I think we have time on it, and whether it is inherent to previous discussions, or it becomes literally part of this discussion, meaning, obviously you don't want an ordinance that does 19 things all at once, right? So we want a singular function, which would be this ordinance to pass, but do we have the additional conversations, whatever it is, to flush out how the rest of the committee pieces are going to work, right? Because the highway committee's got 2 citizens who are volunteering 100% of their time as well. You know, do we make the highway committee 4 people, even though that's, you know, the potential of a mixed bag quorum and even votes and everything else? It's just, in my own mind, there's a second step to this that
Should be looked at before we move on?
I agree with you that there's more fleshing out that needs to happen, but I tend to look at it the other way. The sooner we make the decision to do it, the earlier it is out there in the community that we're going to be going to a 5-person board. I don't want to use the word recruit, but it's more opportunity to talk to people, to get people interested in running for those 2 spots. The more time we have to do that. So that's how, I mean, there's not a right or wrong here, I'm not saying that. It's just, from my point of view, I think the more time we have to talk to people, get them excited about running, talk up the seats, is more beneficial to us. But there's both ways to look at it. Does this need other than the fact that there's a motion on the table, does this need a majority or just unanimous, or is this a majority vote? Just curious.
Well, it would have to be 2 to 3.
Okay, so it's just majority.
Yep.
Are you sticking with your second? Or are you going to
Well, no, I mean, parliamentary, it needed a second to have a discussion, so I can still vote no.
Well, I think Josh has brought some good things to light on the whole thing. I see the positive in it. I see where he's coming from. I'm wondering possibly about putting this off for a month and come up with your ideas on how you would like to spread that out on a 5-person board, what you think should be done. Does that make sense?
So I would think that's all of us.
For all of us, yes. Well, I mean, you brought a good suggestion.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. What's your thought on that, Joe? 1 month won't kill us.
No, but I mean, to me, you can still do the same thing whether it's now or next month, so. Dave, did you have something?
I had a question kind of in that same vein, like you were saying, from the selfish standpoint, over at the airport with the commission. Were you thinking that part of the absorption would be to take the operational end of the airport and put that with the folks? I mean, I'm just asking because it is a board and it would be a job, because Frank is already on the board and we're looking forward, the commission, we're already looking forward to Frank being there. And that would, you know, if they're looking for some justification for something, you know, I'm just asking, because that.
Glad you're asking so we can clarify it here and there's not continued misunderstanding, so thank you.
Okay.
To answer, you were looking at me, so I'll answer. If there's 5 people on the commission right now, we're not looking to go to a board of 7 people to take over 5 people. I mean, you know, the 5 existing, count at 4 or whatever, because Frank's already on it. That's a whole different unraveling of a web. If that was, I mean, that's not a straightforward thing.
Because we are really looking forward to Frank, I think, with his input on something. There is a lot of nuances, just like you have in the town. Obviously, you know, we're pale by comparison, but you know, for all the stuff that we do with the federal government and things, which you guys do too. I just want to, you know, just kind of offer it up there if that was your thoughts.
Yeah.
And no, either way. I'm just asking. You know.
I think one of Josh's points he made is by going to a 5-person board, among all the other benefits that we prior talked about, is Frank can act more as the chairman as opposed to being involved in 2 or 3 different things. So maybe he keeps the airport as his focus and the emergency management plan goes to one of us or one of the new. So, yeah, I mean, I think Frank has an interest in the airport, so, I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but no, I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jim.
I have a question. You're talking about going from a 3-man board to a 5-man board,
Personally.
for a person board. If you to do that, it gives you the freedom to communicate with each other to solve problems. My question is, let's assume, for the moment, only assume, that the airport could be one of those 5. Does that person, the representative from the airport, need to be a town of Palmyra resident to be on that board?
I'm sorry, say, ask.
If the person came from the airport commission, if that representative became one of the 5 for the town board?
They need to be a town resident to run for the town board.
Thank you, that's my question.
Right?
Yeah, nobody on the commission except me is a town resident.
No, Chris is a village resident.
Oh, yeah, he's a village.
Village doesn't-
I'm in Dowson.
So there's no other town resident there? I just thought I should bring that up.
But from the commission standpoint, we already have Frank. So we don't need to have another one come back the other way because we already have Frank. So,
But he's already on this board.
right, so we don't need to really have another one come from there to here. It's, you know, it's already a representative, just like Blue Spring Lake and stuff, I think, you know.
Functionally with the membership of the airport commission, there is no one that can, it's not shifting, it's an election. So they would still have to be a town resident and be elected, and then the town chairman assign them to a committee. You know,
Thank you.
the process behind that is not,
I don't,
it's
fundamentally,
not an either or.
fundamentally, this wouldn't impact, I don't see the airport commission being impacted by this at all, other than who would be the town board rep to the airport commission. I think we pretty much already have that figured out. Right?
And then, so if Frank didn't want to be with the commission, he could appoint somebody else. I mean, again, I'm
Somebody
looking
on the
forward
board.
to it. Yeah, but it have to be on the board here to be appointed over there at the commission level. But you're already there, so you didn't want to
If
do
I'm
it.
not mistaken, I could actually appoint
Any-
Dan over there, who's not even on the board, to be on the police, or the fire commission, or airport commission.
The way we wrote that, it had to be a board member named to the airport commission.
Oh, yeah, he's right. That is the ordinance. It is. You're right, Eddie. Sorry. Okay, where are we at here?
Do you have to restate the motion?
No, I mean, there's a motion and a second. eventually it needs to be voted on, one way or the other. And if it's an affirmative vote, then it moves forward. And if it's an oppositional vote, then even if it's an oppositional vote, Frank has the ability to make the agenda and could put this on realistically. The next 6.
Even if we pass the ordinance to go to 5 today, we could still have an agenda item to report back on what the additional duties or committees would be, so.
Well, okay, we have a motion on the floor. What, I'm entering a discussion now, so can I make an amendment to that motion?
Yes.
I would make an amendment to the motion that if it's passed, that we take 30 days to look at, between now and the next meeting, on what type of committees or duties that the new board members would be responsible for. A motion to make a 5-person board.
I don't know that that is
That would just be asking for something to be put on the agenda to do that.
I don't.
To me, it's either table, continue it till next month, or we vote on the motion. We have to vote on the motion because it's on the table.
Correct.
If we turn it down, then we can continue it till next month while we do this, or if we pass it today, then we can still add an agenda item, so either way, but we just have to vote on the motion.
Correct. That's mine. I'm not the attorney, but
So, just hypothetically, I could probably abstain from voting.
it would be a tie. There would be.
Okay, a motion's on the floor to go to a 5-person board
As of today.
as of tonight with a second. Now, this has to be a roll call vote.
Yes.
With a roll call vote, go ahead.
Sauter,
I'm abstaining.
Martins,
Aye.
ISD,
Hey,
So what does that do for us?
Tables next month, so we can look at it.
I would make a motion to table ordinance 2023-002 until the August meeting.
I'll second it. I have a motion to table the ordinance till next month with a second. All in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
One more look here.
I just wanted to do that.
I saw the grin. I figured it was coming.
Are we having fun yet?
Yeah, at least once.
Not exactly.
I'm just getting our parliamentary feet under us. Stretch the muscles.
Discussion and possible action on 2023-003 ordinance regulating heavy truck routes in the town of Elmira.
So I took an ordinance that the village had, and put it together. The only thing we would have to do is decide on the roads and then the penalties. So you can't, according to the Wisconsin Towns Association, you can't have a no truck route. What you have to do is say, this is the truck route for your heavy trucks,
Correct.
and they have to go on that.
So let's discuss that a little bit. You see here, in the red,
Do we need to read the ordinance, because you read the last one?
No, because I don't really have it yet, because we have to make these
So
changes.
that was
as-
specifically, this is an example.
Yes, and the biggest thing is once, I would think the routes are gonna be easy for you guys to decide, but then I think it's the penalties that you have to talk about. And then if there are penalties Typically, an ordinance can be posted on the website and at the town hall board, but if there are financial aspects to it, like a penalty, it has to be posted in the paper.
Okay. Highlighted in red, I think everybody can see it up there, State Trunk 59, 106E, and H, and Highway Z would have to be added to, that would be our designated truck routes. The only problem area on that, if we designate it, you have a stretch from Little Prairie Road at Z to the south is Little Prairie Road, not Z. So there's an issue right there. We would possibly have to make that section a truck route as they come off of 67. However, Dave lives right out there, I see him in the audience tonight. You're coming out of Little Prairie, you're at the stop sign, you're gonna turn left on Little Prairie Road there. We need to put a sign, truck route straight ahead, and we need to signage off to the left. Whatever the signage has to be, no trucks, etc., by order of the town board. A couple of them, so those truckers can see that. That would hopefully make them shoot straight down Highway Z to 59. Also talking about this was on the agenda at the village. They're posting more signs. They have a problem on Northwest from Maine, a couple others, Tamarack Road. The village will allow us to post signs wherever you think they should be posted, Josh. Because you can talk about it. Within the village before they get to the town. However, they're putting up several more signs. So I've been out there on those roads. I've talked to Christy Nelson out there on Tamarack Road. She said they are hammering through there from 4:30 to 6:45 in the morning like there's no tomorrow. Big trucks up and down that road. It is pretty bad. The other day, I got behind a, what was that? I don't know, big trucking company. Right behind it, headed down the mill, didn't even bother stopping for the railroad tracks at all, at least 25 mile an hour right across that. Well, maybe they're gonna go down to A1, nope, right out of town. I mean, skip 15 or 25, who knows how fast they're going. That's what's going on out there, folks. Is that right, Dave? We've got to try and protect the people. And that's first and foremost, protecting the people, because it's getting bad. Now, I've got sympathy for the truckers. Okay, they're hard workers. Their GPSs are telling them to go that way. But they can take Z instead of Little Prairie, Elmira. We've got to get the community a little bit more safe for everybody, and it's also going to save the roads, correct? Joe?
Are there any other municipalities that we have to work in conjunction with, where all of a sudden it's allowed and not allowed to come into? Well, I don't know that there are, I'm just asking the question.
You have that tiny,
Like range or anything out there?
well, you would on Tamarack. You would on Tamarack. I mean, I could probably call the town chairman up and go over there, find out what he'd do for us. Let's see what their ordinances are. You can't stop somebody from going to the chicken farm.
No.
You know, and nobody wants to. But the ones that are going straight through, all the way right past the chicken farm, right up to Highway 12, and that's happening, folks. Just to try and deter some of this. And there's gotta be a monetary amount. Like $250, second offense 500.
Well, that was another question that I would have is that an amount that, it's fairly sizable, okay, don't get me wrong, but is that an amount that would deter them, or if they just consider the cost of doing business? I don't know.
Well, I don't think they'd say that if you just made citation. I will tell you that I spoke to the Watertown chairman, because they have an ordinance And it was funny, I called that day, I might have mentioned this at the last meeting, but, he says, boy, they're out, they must be out there working, because I'm getting calls from trucking companies, there's a bunch of tickets. The owners of the company, well, what are you gonna do for us? Well, I can do anything, stay, keep the semis off the road, like you want to fix the ticket or something, for Christ's sake. So, hit him, I'll be saying, hit him in the pocketbook. Nobody wants to get a speeding ticket, but most of us here have, haven't we?
Yeah, Laura, is 500, is that a state maximum, or that's just an example? We can-
That's just an example, yeah.
34604 Prim 1 is failure to be an official sign. Let me search for that. And, you know,